Good to have you with us in the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. We put the spotlight on one of the biggest talking points in the country today. The Pegasus project and the report series of reports actually that have been published by the digital news portal The Wire. In fact, the Pegasus project story is not just a story being done by The Wire, but it's in association with multiple international news organizations who seem to have accessed this data list, a leaked data list, which has phone numbers, names and phone numbers of people with details on when they were potential targets for snooping or hacking and surveillance. This is a list which is allegedly a part of the Pegasus database. Now, for those of you who may have missed this story and the Pegasus controversy the first time around, which is about 2 years ago or even this time, Pegasus is actually a spyware made by the NSO group. And this company claims that they actually sell this spyware and all its various aspects only to establish verified governments. It's also supposed to be extremely expensive, which is one of the arguments that is often made that only governments can actually afford this. But these are the claims that NSO makes. Let me just very quickly remind you, in 2019, similar stories emerged when WhatsApp itself claimed that their clients, Indians with Indian phone numbers, their WhatsApp had been hacked using Pegasus, which was then used for snooping surveillance. It became a big story. At that point of time, the government had said that yes, the WhatsApp did tell us 2 times about this possible breach. The government department of CERT even put out those details. The government said we're going to look into it. WhatsApp itself took NSO to court in United States. Now comes the second round. It's becoming bigger and bigger with every passing minute as The Wire continues to publish story after story with more and more names. Essentially, they are saying about 5,000 people globally their names were on this list, allegedly to be for surveillance purposes. This leaked list of potential targets was for snooping. Some phones were hacked with Pegasus. They have attempted to do a very basic forensic of a few phone devices, and that is what it has indicated. But a deeper, higher level of technical analysis will have to be done. They've also gone on to say that usually these are things that are done by unidentified government agencies. It is unclear of if at all there was snooping of these numbers, who carried it out. NSO Group, though, has responded saying, we deny all the false allegations in the report. Assumptions are wrong. Theories are uncorroborated. We only sell this spyware to vetted governments and no such data really exists on our own server. We don't have the data. We just give the spyware to the governments and then they use it the way they want. But let me give you the insight into the extent of these claims, which is why this story becomes important, which is why I believe it is important to investigate this story further, to have a high-level, proper investigation into these claims. Right on top of the list are numbers of Rahul Gandhi, which were allegedly on the potential target list. Of Rahul Gandhi, the numbers he used back in 2018, 2019, along with some of his closest of the aides who are not even part of active politics, that those numbers are not in use by him anymore. But the claim is that the number was put on this list of potential targets in the run-up to the 2019 elections. Then there is a top court staffer who had made a complaint against the then Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, and if you remember, it had become a big story. 11 numbers of the staffer's family, 3 numbers of the SC staffer herself, allegedly are on this list. Prashant Kishore, currently in news one more time, the political strategist, his number was on the target list along with Abhishek Banerjee. And this again, not just in 2018-2019, but as recent as this year, in the run-up to the state assembly elections where Prashant Kishore was working with the TMC in West Bengal before elections. Ashwini Vaishnav, ironically the current IT minister who actually went in the parliament and dismissed these reports, his number and his wife's number allegedly was also on this list. Ashok Lavasa of the Election Commission, a potential target. Prahlad Patel, MOS, a potential target, not just him, his associates, cook, gardener, allegedly on the 2019 list. Gagandeep Kang, who at that point of time in 2019 was working closely with the Kerala government on tackling Nipah virus. Top virologist of our country, one of the biggest names we have right now in the vaccine policy sphere. Her name allegedly on the list for potential surveillance in 2018. Jagdeep Choker, founder of the Association of Democratic Reforms, the ADR group has actually taken on the government on many issues, including electoral bonds. They've even gone to court on multiple aspects. His name allegedly on this list. Now, here is one thing I want to make extremely clear, which the Wire also repeatedly says in its stories, that this is a list of potential targets for surveillance. Difficult to say if all of them, their numbers were actually hacked into. And that is what we believe, and I believe, needs to be investigated. The government, on the other hand, has outright come and dismissed all of it, said there is no truth to any of it. The Home Minister of our country, Amit Shah, has come out and said this is just a disruption tactic. The government has questioned the timing of these reports, linking it to the monsoon session, saying it's a global conspiracy, by indirectly saying or talking about Amnesty International, and linking it to the opposition parties in our country who are now raising this issue. So let's straight away get to our panelists, talk about this, what we know, what we don't know, what could possibly mean with the basis of what the stories that have come out. Tuhin Sinha of the BJP, Tarun Vig, Information Security Consultant, co-founder of Inifu Labs, Vijayata Singh, Deputy Editor of The Hindu, Nikhil Pava of Media Nama, Rahul Naran, Advocate of the Supreme Court. Nikhil, I want to start off with you first. We had many of these conversations, I remember a couple of years ago when that story became big. Now that we look at it, it didn't go anywhere except maybe the legal case that's going on in United States between WhatsApp and NSO. But how are you viewing what has now been reported by The Wire? What does it mean to you?
Well, Tanvi, I see it as an attack on our democracy, because effectively multiple pillars of our democracy are being attacked. The opposition clearly, journalists clearly. Now, one problem with this Pegasus thing is that it's very difficult to attribute where it came from. So we can only triangulate it, saying that the government is doing this, but we have no proof to say that. And so what this really needs is a thorough investigation, but we also need this to go to court. I think entities who have been surveilled and in what is clearly seems to be, even if it's authorized, it seems to be illegal surveillance. When the election commissioners surveilled, for example, right? I think we need people to go to court to challenge the government on this, to try and get information on what were the orders that were given, what money was paid to the NSO group for getting the software. And at the end of it, what we need is institutional change. We need surveillance reform. Our surveillance agencies who have very clearly crossed the line in this case, if it is they who have conducted the surveillance, we need them to be held accountable. And to Parliament, there needs to be a judicial process in place. We need to have a much stronger surveillance reform mechanism and a surveillance reform law, because many of us have been calling for the personal data protection bill and the privacy law for a few years now, but the personal data protection bill will not address government surveillance because it completely exempts any activities of the government, and so we need a separate surveillance reform movement here. Because this is not going to stop here. The problem with Pegasus is that many people will never know that they have been surveilled unless there is some leak of some sort that happens from the NSO group side, which is what seems to have happened here. If it's on your device, your antivirus software, your malware software will never be able to detect it because it's just so it's so architected that and that's why it's so expensive. It's almost 1 crore per person to surveil. So at that level of sophistication, uh, you know, if I'm being surveilled, if you're being surveilled, or anyone on this panel is being surveilled, they'll never know. So the only trail that we can have here is through an examination of the expenditures that have been made by our surveillance agencies, and that will only work if it is done by a bipartisan parliamentary committee that's created. And I mean, there's so much to do here, both at a local government level as well as at an international level, where the UN needs to look at the sale of these cyber weapons, and perhaps call for disarmament, which is much needed in the cyberspace today.
Yes, and I agree with you, Nikhil. And what is extremely disturbing for me right now is that we're going to be stuck in the same place again and again and again. List after list will come every now and then. There will be, noise inside and outside Parliament. There will be noise in TV studios, but nothing will come out of it. We are moving to a point where one might just as well begin to accept the fact that this surveillance takes place without due procedures. We would never know. I was looking and I wanted to specifically find out what is the status of what happened in 2019 and where it went. The CERT in audit, a notice was sent to the NSO group in November 2019 after WhatsApp alerted them in May 2019. There is no update on what happened to that. The Parliamentary Standing Committee was the only group perhaps that agreed to at least give a hearing to the alleged victims of the hacking back then. Heard them out. Nothing happened even on that. Even they haven't come out with a report. The government itself said we will look into it, we will investigate. Nothing has happened. In the court, the cases haven't moved anywhere. Vijayta, I want to come to you because, as a journalist, it now seems that if you have concerns on whether somebody is snooping on you, government or otherwise, you are on your own. Go to a court of law and fight it out for yourself because nobody else seems to be interested.
Yeah, that's right. It's very unsettling to know that somebody has been reading your messages and somebody has been listening to your calls. Though we are not sure at whose behest it was done, I would desist from making any claims on that front. But the wire team got in touch with me a few days back, and they ran some forensic tests on my old handset, which I was using in 2019, and they found some bug and some malicious link which was sent to my phone, and they came to some conclusion. But that is not the point. As they have explained in their subsequent stories also, the consortium of journalists, that this software, it could remotely activate camera in your phone, and it could remotely activate your mic of your phone. It is a very disturbing thing to happen to a woman. Suppose you're sitting in your bedroom and they just want to, listen to what you're saying, what you're talking about. So it affects my right as a citizen also, my privacy rights as a citizen also, not only as a journalist. As a journalist, we do gather information, we do talk to people, we do talk to officials, but the information, we process it, we objectively look at it, and it is in the newspapers the following days. But the larger question is my right to privacy. What if my pictures, my photos, my passwords, that they fall in wrong hands? Who is to be held accountable for this? I mean, just 10 agencies in India are authorized to tap phones. And can the government tell us which of the agencies did purchase this software from the Israeli company, if at all they did?
Yeah. So when the Wire team got in touch with you, and since then, has there also been a forensic analysis, any tech checks done on your device as well? because I was earlier reading up on a lot more that can be done, and Nikhil in fact has pointed this out on social media as well. The Pegasus can also be used to then plant information on your phone, and it won't just be limited if somebody has put Pegasus on your phone to just hearing and watching what you're doing, but also planting evidence.
Yeah, so I have no idea what all has been exfiltrated from my phone or what has been installed on my phone. I am just talking to you on the basis of what the Wire and the Amnesty Group, they conducted some tests on my phone, and this is on the basis of the finding that they have arrived at. I have no independent confirmation of it, so that is where the government should come in, because if NSO is to be believed, they only sell their product to vetted governments. So it is the ball is with the government's court, because even today the IT minister, he did not categorically deny that they have not purchased, none of the government agencies have in fact purchased the Pegasus software. So there is no categorical denial of Pegasus being bought by any government agency. So that is where the grey area lies.
Okay, fair enough. Let me take the few of those points to Tuhin Sinha as well. Tuhin, what is also a little concerning for me has been the response of the government is to outright simply rubbish everything without at least this time even saying we will look into it. We will investigate. We are concerned about the people whose names have come, journalists, politicians, our own ministers at one point of time. We are concerned that their names are there, and we will investigate what exactly is the truth behind it. The government doesn't even seem to be interested in it. How is it already a conspiracy to you?
Well, Tanvi, the Wire, like Amnesty International, has zero credibility today, and most of the stories they manufacture are based on, wrong assumptions and unproven facts. Now, the same story which they have brought out clearly says that the presence of a certain number in the database does not confirm that that number was prone to surveillance. Now, you have stated the cost of surveillance for one phone, which is something like 1 crore. Do you think that the government would carry out its surveillance, upon Mr. Vaishnav, Ashwini Vaishnav ji in 2018, on Prahlad Patel ji, and then reward them with senior ministerial positions? So I think the list itself is convoluted, it is contrived, it is a figment of somebody's imagination. And, the other point is that WhatsApp in itself in the Supreme Court has very clearly submitted through its lawyer then, Kapil Sibal, that WhatsApp data cannot be, is not subject to surveillance, and especially of Pegasus. So WhatsApp anyway is ruled out. Now the thing is, any responsible government, purely for purposes of
I don't know what you're talking about. WhatsApp is still fighting this case against the NSO in United States. To him, WhatsApp hasn't ruled out anything.
No, you can check the records. Kapil Sibal was representing WhatsApp and has very clearly
after the hackings and the attempts in 2018 and 2019, which is exactly the timeline for all of many of these as well.
So, which only means
this is the same time when the WhatsApp came out publicly and said so. The government admitted to it that yes, we did get these alerts from WhatsApp. I don't know what is being dismissed so openly by the government. If the government's benchmark is that NSO has denied everything, I don't think that can be taken at face value.
May I address this, Tanvi? I just wanted to explain.
First of all, let me just complete my point. Just 30 seconds more. No, first of all, there is no iota to suggest any government involvement, if at all Pegasus has been used in the country. Now, let me go a step further. A responsible government is within its rights to carry out service, but within section 5 of the Telegraph Act, which has been carried out in the past. But this is not like the UPA government in 2013, which an RTI query had revealed that the 7,500 to 9,000 numbers were subject to surveillance in a month. That is certainly not the case. But yes, anti-nationals, for all you know, legally might be put under surveillance. But this, again, is not under this present concocted, Pegasus story, which has been brought out by The Wire.
Okay, just want to highlight though, not that I am saying it makes it any better at all, any which ways, But the story that you're quoting about 2013 orders, which was a part of this RTI, actually spoke about central government ordering those. So there was certain sense of legality at least still involved in terms of following some procedure and putting it on record, which is why it was a part of the RTI response. Here we don't know, first of all, whether the government was snooping at all or not, and if there was a procedure followed or not. So two very different things. Nikhil wanted to come in earlier with a clarification. Yeah. Yes, Nikhil.
So, Tanvi, I just want to clarify this. Pegasus software can be delivered to a device. Initially, the issue was it was being delivered through WhatsApp. It can be delivered through any mechanism. Once it is on your device, your data is unencrypted, and it can send out information of your WhatsApp messages, of your Signal messages, of all messages, of your iMessage calls, of your Skype calls. All that information can still be sent out. So the delivery mechanism may no longer be WhatsApp, but that doesn't mean that another delivery mechanism cannot exist. It can even come through your email, right? So I think that misconception that just because WhatsApp is now denying in code saying that it's been fixed, it doesn't mean that it can't come onto your device in any other way. It can. And therefore, that's the problem, that this software is highly sophisticated, very difficult to detect, and it can funnel out information very easily. And it only targets specific people.
Okay, so here is a follow-up question, and Tarun, maybe you can come in on this aspect, because the government is relying also on NSO's refusal and denial. Now, NSO says such a database doesn't exist. If there has to be a database of these phone numbers which were on the list of people who any entity wanted to be snooped upon, would that be with Pegasus or NSO, or with the client who's bought the software?
So NSO works on a premise, as somebody was mentioning on the panel. NSO is a very expensive software. It's almost 80 to 100 CR for 20 concurrent devices, 30 concurrent devices. Now, that's how they control their licensing policy. That every number that you compromise is deducted from the list of numbers, that means list of official count of phones that you can hack, 30, 40, whatever you pay for, right? So logically speaking, yes, NSO would definitely have a repository of all their clients. Every customer, if he is compromising a number, NSO will keep a record that this number has been compromised or used, against this client, and that's how they would maintain their licensing policy. Having said that, NSO in this case has come out and said, that this list of 50,000 numbers, NSO says that overall per year they compromise somewhere around 5,000 numbers, not 50,000. So they say 50,000 is an exaggeration. They also say that, they have other services, including a service which gives the location of a phone, HLR, home location registry, by virtue of which you are able to identify that a particular number is in which area, in which country. So NSO says, NSO has replied to Amnesty, Wire, and Citizen Lab, saying that this list of 50,000 number is coming from that particular service that they provide, which is identifying the location of a number, and not connected to their snooping activities. That's what NSO says.
Okay, that's as far as NSO's claims are concerned. Rahul Raran also with us. Rahul, go ahead, please. You've heard everybody out. You wanted to make a point.
See, I mean, the simple fact is that, the first thing I would like to bring out is that surveillance is one thing, and Pegasus is something quite different. In my opinion, at least my legal opinion, there is a distinction between the legal regime for snooping, which is basically standard garden variety surveillance, and installing and actually hacking something, installing something in somebody's phone. In my opinion, I don't think Section 5 subclause 2 of the Indian Telegraph Act or 69 of the IT Act allows for this sort of thing. So if it is actually being done, it is being done, I think, at least in my view, without the benefit of the law. Now, whether it's actually done or not, of course, is a matter of investigation, and that this is something which is still being carried out. But this is again very serious. We've been, as a person involved in the privacy cases for the last about 10 years or so, we've always been raising this, even about the Aadhaar in 2012, before the current dispensation came to power. This is too much information is power, and this is too much power which is given to one central agency. The simple fact is that in India, the surveillance law, the surveillance mechanism, such as it is basically executive centered in the sense that it is the executive government which makes a decision. I don't know what are the safeguards. I don't know what is the way in which anybody can find out about it. One, and two, is there somebody checking whether that should be continued or not? Like Section 5(2) of the Telegraph Act talks about an emergency situation. Now, nobody provides how long the surveillance is going to last. So, supposing somebody under this emergency provision, somebody started being surveilled in say 2013, will that continue now endlessly forever? Is there a mechanism to check? There's basically very little, almost no clarity on this. And then again, like I said, this is even more serious. Pegasus is more serious than that because, again, the fact of like just a few months ago, there was the Bhima Koregaon case where, again, the Washington Post or somebody had taken out a news item that apparently some of the activists, their laptops had been compromised and information had been planted. Now, this is again very different from the earlier view of just of snooping.
Yeah.
Snooping itself is awful, like I said, but this is so much worse. I think that we need this is not a political issue as much as it's a human rights issue. I think that it should outrage everybody that such a thing is possible, and that such a thing is taking place in this manner is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, and what is the messaging that is really going out from the way the government and various names in the government seem to be responding to it? That it doesn't matter if there is something like this which is taking place. We don't even want to look at it simply because the journalists whose names are there are journalists which are critical of the government, simply because the organization that is putting this out has an image of being anti-BJP government, simply because the other organization which is part of this investigation is an organization that has publicly, globally taken you on, shut down their operations in this country and gone out, or that the names include many of your rivals, names include many of the activists who question your policy. So it doesn't matter. Tuhin Sinha, at the end of the day, are these people, including Jagdeep Chokar, Ashok Lavasa, Vijayta, who is sitting on our panel tonight, are these people not Indians? Are you, as the government, still not supposed to look out for their rights?
First of all, like I said, the list is very contrived. It also includes Ashwini Vaishnav. It also includes Prahlad Patel, which is the first indicator of the list being an absolutely contrived and convoluted list. Now, like I said, it is very rich to think that the government...
How do you make that connection?
Is that the reason why they've been promoted to senior ministerial positions? Is that the reason in the last 1 year, in the last, after 2018-19, after spying on them, snooping on them, we would promote them as in senior ministerial positions? Secondly, again, it is too rich to assume that commercial...
If we are having a hypothetical conversation here, Tuhin, if we are having a hypothetical conversation, because that's how your assumption seems, we don't know if they were snooped upon and what was found was helpful or not, if they passed a test in a certain manner, or if they failed a test and they were confronted on it and then they changed their statistics. It doesn't matter. How can that be speculated and assumed right now to say just because there are people from within our organization means that the list is false or fabricated?
Let us wait and watch. Given the lack of credibility of the wire, it is but obvious to take it with a pinch of salt. But let us wait for a couple of days, let more information come out. We will not shy away from investigation. We have brought out the data protection bill, but at the same time, if you go into the history of the wire, how many they just lap up opportunities to defame the country and the establishment. So wait for a couple of days. I would be sitting with you again on Wednesday, perhaps, if the issue persists, and we will, go for the appropriate investigation into the issue.
I just want to point this out, and here is a fact that was given in written by the government in March 2021 as a written response in the parliament to a question by DMK MP on did the government find presence of spyware such as Pegasus. The Ministry of Information Technology said no such information is available with the government. To the question, has government launched any investigation into the use and presence of spyware in India? The response from the Ministry of Information Technology is no such information is available with the government. Now, I don't know what has changed in the last 3 months between this response and this story coming out. But from what it seems, there wasn't an attempt made, or there was no information available, and now suddenly there is an outright denial. That to me is extremely concerning. Vijeta, what is the way out as a journalist who may have been put on a target list and whose number may have been compromised? What are your thoughts and how you want to deal with this now?
So the first thing to come out of this is to come out of denial that the government is ready to believe what the NSO is saying. They are quoting NSO statement, and but they're not ready to believe what a set of journalists are telling them. So it is for the government to decide, but it's a grave issue because the control of this software is with a foreign country, is with a foreign company. If that doesn't concern the people in power, I don't know what else concerns them. Okay, if you don't like a particular set of journalists, it's not about me, it's not about anybody else, it's not about any other journalist who is on the list or any other politician. It's a much larger issue of privacy, it's a much larger issue of national security. So the agencies which are authorized to surveil citizens in India, there is an accountability, there is a process. It goes step by step. The Home Secretary has to sanction. But this software, nobody knows who owns this and to what extent it can be misused. As someone has rightly put here, that for how long this surveillance can, if the malicious link has been put in your phone, and if you have not changed your handset, for how long this can continue? Can they switch on and switch off at their own will? So am I at the mercy of somebody? I mean, it's my right to know. So these questions should be answered.
Yes, and I think we need to continue to ask government this question of why is it that you're denying names of people whose names have appeared, even that opportunity to really know what went on. Nikhil, one more question to you. The government is also basing its response on the fact, saying even the organization that has done this story, even the Wire itself in a sense, is saying that this doesn't prove that there has been snooping. This is a list of potential targets. But I think there is somewhere a mismatch. The fact is that the Wire is saying so because this requires a high level, a very sophisticated level of investigation to find out what has happened and how, which may not be possible for any news media organization and perhaps can only be done by a government entity.
Well, Tanvi, the only way we can find out whether the government is responsible for this or not is through a thorough investigation that follows the money. Because money has been paid to the NSO group for this, it's very clear that the government is not explicitly denying. Ravi Shankar Prasad didn't do it in 2019. Ashwini Vaishnav hasn't done it now. They have said that there has been no unauthorized surveillance. That doesn't mean that they haven't authorized surveillance. So in the absence of an explicit denial, I think the suspicion will always remain that they have authorized this surveillance. And it can only be proven if there is an independent bipartisan parliamentary committee that especially looks into the surveillance of parliamentarians and brings in the agencies like Enforcement Directorate or RAW or Intelligence Bureau, whoever has used this, and looks at their finances and sees, is there a money trail going to the NSO group? That's one part of it. But I think, like I said earlier, journalists should go to court. They should challenge them being surveilled, despite the fact that it's very difficult to attribute digital surveillance to any entity. There is no doubt that we need surveillance reform. Now, Tuhin spoke about the data protection bill. Let me remind you, the personal data protection bill in its current form completely exempts government from any scrutiny here. So the government can continue to surveil, and the data protection law will not protect us from surveillance by the government. It will protect us from surveillance by big tech organizations, but not from government. So we need a separate law to address surveillance and reform that. And over and above that, like I was saying earlier, we need at a global level a disarmament of sorts, because today Our government might be surveilling us. Tomorrow, a foreign government will end up surveilling us. Governments will surveil each other. They will surveil citizens of different countries. And this is a race to the bottom. And this is terrible for our rights as individuals in democracies. And so we need global solutions where these cyber weapons need to be outlawed across the world because they're being used to attack our rights. What's happening here with surveillance is a violation of our fundamental right to privacy. And it's not just happening with this Pegasus system. There is NatGrid that's being created, which is going to combine all sorts of data sets and create a 360-degree profile of each individual. There are state resident data hubs that are already being created, which basically provide that kind of data. There is a centralized monitoring system, which is used to surveil our regular phone calls and messages. So the surveillance apparatus has gone completely out of control, and there are no checks and balances outside of a bureaucrat checking on a bureaucrat. And we need to go beyond that and have parliamentary oversight. We need to have judicial oversight, and we need to ensure, because remember, our fundamental rights are meant to protect us against the state, citizens against the state. Right now, that's completely out of whack, and the state is empowered.
But when it is the state which is at the heart of the controversy and could be possible, it's the state that was actually that actually created this list of potential targets with the intent of wanting to do surveillance or snoop on them, then it becomes problematic. And the only question we have is, then who's going to give us the truth? Then who's going to bring out the truth? And I just want to point out one more thing. Like Nikhil was saying, there hasn't been as a matter of fact, in as many direct words, a denial by the government that there hasn't been any official surveillance. They're saying there's been no unofficial surveillance. What does that mean? Whether these people were tracked, we don't know, because the wording of the statement is so convoluted. Similarly, the government has cited an RTI response to say, again, dismiss these allegations. Now, that RTI was actually filed by journalist Saurav Das. The response to his queries about information on Pegasus and Pegasus-related snooping, also the RTI response itself said, we don't have any information available with us. To say we don't have any information available cannot be tagged as a denial of the allegation or the act itself. There is a difference here which I'm repeatedly trying to highlight because it is important for our viewers to understand that difference. A wordplay, and then using that wordplay to now say that, oh, it's already been dismissed, denied, matter is over, is very, very misleading. Thank you to Nikhil Pahwa and Vijeta for joining me right now. I also say good evening to Anshul Avajit of the Congress Party. Rahul Narayan wanted to come in. Rahul, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to make two quick points. One is that, whatever the wire's political credibility, the fact of the matter is this is also being reported by the Washington Post and the Guardian and Le Monde in France. So those are by any standards fairly credible sources. So to dismiss it out of hand may not be completely correct. No one is saying that the government actually has done this. They may have done it, they may not have done it, but surely this is worth investigating further, and a blanket denial of the vague kind which has come about is not really the appropriate answer to this. And secondly, one has to really, again, this is it's a very serious point, mainly because surveillance itself is so bad. And like I said, this is beyond surveillance. The threat that people's information is being tapped is bad enough. But the fact that they could be entrapped by things which have been put on their phones or on their devices by unsavory actors is even more appalling. And now NSO says, for example, that its only clients are government or various vetted governments, whatever vetted government means. The second issue is, who would possibly be, which other government apart from ours would be doing this? I mean, again, it's a matter of plausible deniability. We have to think about it. That, for example, Mr. Lavasa, or for example, the lady who accused the Chief Justice of sexual harassment. These kind of people are being looked at by whom exactly? I don't understand. Who else could it be apart from somebody who's obviously interested in making a political point out of it? But then I hasten to add that this is not really about politics. This is essentially about the rights of the citizen. It's really very important for people to know that they're not everything is being surveilled. Yes. In fact, I think Justice Subba Rao had said that a person who's watched all the time is not a free man. The whole country is his prison. I think the metaphor is completely apt. If everything we do is being watched by some big brother, or we think it is being watched by some big brother, that is bad enough. Incidentally, that is the test which the European Court of Human Rights uses. For surveillance, you can never know when it's happening, when it's not happening. So the European court says if there is a reasonable presumption it is happening, that's bad enough. That there's a case called Roman Zakharov, which with in Russia, which deals with something similar.
Okay. Okay. You know the point that you've raised. I'm going to take it across to Tarun Vig. Anshul, just give me a couple of more minutes. I'm coming to you next. But Tarun, let's take this a step further and let our viewers also know what is my right, what is my legal protection in case there is a possibility of this taking place, and my government is not willing to look at it. I mean, Rahul makes the point that if not you, then who? I would like to ask my government that question, except that the government is saying the whole story is false, not just that they haven't done it. So, what is then an option for a citizen, a legal option for a citizen?
See, IT Act 69 clearly defines the rule for interception. There are very well-defined rules in terms of that any number or interception has to be signed by the Home Secretary of that state or the Union Home Secretary. Subsequently, every month, there is a report submitted to the Cabinet Secretary, of all the numbers under interception. The duration of a number under interception is by default 7 days, can be extended to 30 days in case, in case of special circumstances. So IT Act 69 has defined very well, the rules for interception. Hacking is not covered in IT 69. Hacking is illegal. So any hacking attempt which has been done on any citizen of the country, first, let's be honest, no bureaucrat, no officer can officially sanction a hacking attack because it is not covered by the laws of the country. It is not, right? So any bureaucrat, any officer who actually authorizes a hacking attempt on a number, maybe using Pegasus, maybe whatever, is actually putting his job on the line, because it's illegal. As a citizen of the country, if you feel that your phone has been hacked, the first and the foremost thing is to lodge a complaint in the cyber cell. There are different cyber cells in every state. There's a integrated coordination committee in terms of I4C, where you can lodge a complaint online. So the first and foremost thing is to lodge a complaint in the cyber cell, get your forensically audited to identify if hacking attack took place or not, and if yes, then try and identify or attribute the hacking attack to the organization which may have done it. But this is what the IT Act defines.
Okay, fair enough. Anshul, Abhijit, at this point of time, the response from the government is actually more about the timing of the story than the merit of the story, and they're linking it to opposition parties, including yours. Your response?
I mean, that's absolute outrageous. I mean, the deniability and the statement that the IT minister, I didn't think he realized that he was a victim of this targeting when he made that statement, but it was typical of him. These kind of statements have come out from the government before, sensationalism, that there is a global conspiracy. Do you mean to tell me, Tanvi, that the New York Times was actually sitting on some story, and just to disrupt this monsoon session of Parliament, they brought out this kind of disclosure of all these names. And so have other international newspapers. The government's response has been to these newspapers has been that it's a consortium of discredited sort of news agencies that are against this government and they want to pull it down. Absolutely outrageous response by the IT minister, who thinks that everything is a global conspiracy to disrupt the monsoon session of Parliament. I think that deniability is also very, very curious and also very telling, Tanvi, because the IT minister, the previous IT minister, in a response in the Rajya Sabha in 2019 November, said that there were a number of names, there were at least 119 actually such names which have come to light in which their phones have been hacked, and that he asked for an inquiry and served a notice to NSO. And, from then on, we didn't hear anything of that matter. So it's not that the government wasn't aware of this. Suddenly it says that for 2 years, you've suddenly exploded this story upon us, just on the eve of the monsoon session. We don't know what it is. It's a global conspiracy. We don't know what to do about it. We absolutely deny it. But for 2 years, you've kept mum on the entire issue. You knew about it, but you've kept mum. At the very least, What we want is a probe into the matter. And the categorical question remains, did this government order or authorize a Pegasus hack on its own citizens or not? I mean, the question has not been answered. There's been a lot of whataboutery as well. The Congress did this. I mean, that's always a weak pivot. Look at what the Congress did earlier. Other kind of loose and unsatisfactory explanations, and then this messy and experienced reply by the IT minister, who said that this is pure sensationalism on the eve of the monsoon session. If that the whole world is preoccupied with India's monsoon session, absolutely absurd. What is happening here is that we should actually order a probe, an independent judicial probe, to get down to the bottom of this, because what it appears to be is a gross transgression of legality, of constitutionality, to an extent which has never happened before. We keep using these words, the opposition does all the time. This is an Orwellian state. What have we come down to? There's clampdown on civil liberties. These are all considered cliches, which the opposition comes to time and again to use. But no, these are based on facts, and this is another fact which has been around. This topic has been around for 2.5 years. And it should be proved thoroughly. The government cannot escape this, and will continue to raise it. Monsoon session or no monsoon session.
Well, okay, I will come back to you in just a bit, because I also have a question for you, since you said that this issue has been around for 2.5 years, and we need to do something about it. But Tuhin Sinha, respond to what Anshul Avijit is saying. The government isn't clearly giving a direct answer. Your answer is there has been no illegal interception. Have you legally intercepted these people?
Pegasus has been found to be used in 45 countries. In how many countries is the government, is it being attributed to the government, or the government is being blamed for it? So first, let us get more details. We have also seen that certain names are being added in hindsight. The name of Ashwini Vaishnav, for all you know, your and my name could be added by the end of the show. So anyway, let us wait for more details by the end of the show. Let me say this on record, that it is the job of an alert government to spy on anti-nationals. In fact, Chanakya's Arthashastra spoke about the art of spying in great detail. But that does not mean that people ever, indulge in illegal spying. Whatever, if at all, is happening, will happen under the protocols and legal provisions, Section 5 of Indian Telegraph Act. And let me just put the final point. See, logically speaking, it is a little rich that to think that the government would employ commercial spyware to spy on Rahul Gandhi. If at all Rahul Gandhi has been spied upon, perhaps it has been by foreign interests, the way he has been vilifying Rafale, the way he, apparently roots for Rafale's rivals. It is quite possible that some foreign agency might be spying upon him.
Anshul?
No, I mean, I do not understand this explanation. First of all, the NSO says clearly that the software is given to vetted governments. So it's clear on their website who it's given to. If we know that if the government had it, the question is whether did they authorize this kind of hacking or not. That is a simple question to the government. I mean, it still hasn't answered that. Tuhin hasn't answered. Obviously, he doesn't know, because as he rightly pointed out, he could be the next on the list. The curious case is that your own people have been spied upon. Your own cabinet ministers, head of institutions have been spied upon, and this list keeps stumbling out in this kind of staggered way. So the government is so paranoid, so suspicious, so fighting shadows all the time that it's spying apparently on its own cabinet ministers. Outrageous. So such is the level of paranoia in this government. We don't know what's going to tumble out next. The only solution here is that you have to find out if there has been an authorized use or unauthorized use of this software, and an independent probe by a judge can only resolve this matter. Deniability is not going to settle it. We are not going to be satisfied with deniability. After all, it's too big to be denied over here. So we have to find out, we have to get to the bottom of this, and we will keep asking those kind of searching questions till we do.
I mean, to begin with, I don't even know if the center officially, uses the Pegasus, has bought it for spying on anti-nationals and doing surveillance on anti-nationals to protect this country or not. Even that part is a little here and there in the middle of multiple statements between 2019 and now. But I have one question I want to ask Rahul. On the larger concept of Rahul, snooping and surveillance, even the measures which are there to protect our privacy and to protect misuse of it, how often do we find instances where those rules are actually broken and the checks and balances which are meant to be in the system actually work?
See, as far as surveillance in India is concerned, like I've been saying before, it is extremely opaque. We really have very little idea as to how the entire system works. I understand, of course, the mechanisms which exist under the IT Act Section 69, which are in theory very, very good. And there appears to be some kind of provision under Section 5.2 of the Telegraph Act also, which is apparently not that good. But the simple fact is that the old system of telephone tapping in India, which falls from a 1996 case by PUCL, badly needs updation. And I think we could do much worse than to follow the American system, which is they have secret FISA judges. That is, they have certain judges who hear cases in confidence. But this kind of powers of surveillance are only allowed if you make your case before an impartial judge. So obviously, the person who's going to be surveilled is not hurt in this. But the point is, you have to have an initial basis before you can do that. It can't just be absolute, completely crazy suspicion. So to that extent, I think the movement toward, as far as the law is concerned, the movement has to be towards more transparency and towards more accountability by basically a procedure established by law. That is actually also the language in the Constitution. Your right to life can only be taken away if there is a procedure established by law. Let the procedure established by law for surveillance be clearly laid down and let it be fairly enforced by all concerned. Nobody over here can deny, like Chanakya said, like Mr. Tohin was saying, obviously there has to be some level of spying at some point. We understand that, we respect that. Let there be a system, a fair system in which there is accountability to do such a thing. And let me tell you, like we've been discussing all along, I don't think Pegasus would fall under any reasonable criteria of spying. So if the government is using Pegasus, that is actually not at all a good thing. And I hope that either they stop doing it or there is a new government guideline to govern this. And I think this may be also a very important learning lesson for the opposition parties as well. Maybe now the ministers who were so proud of Aadhaar and of NATGrid 10 years ago will now change their minds and think that maybe that these things weren't such a great idea after all. People who have been opposing all of these all the way through. It's not a matter of political party. The simple fact is that citizens need to be protected against the state, and that this sort of reform can only take place if there is a general consensus among everyone that this is too great a power to allow the opposition or to allow the government. Therefore, nobody should have this power. Let it be regulated by, so to speak, a larger group of people so that there is no abuse.
Okay, all right. I'm going to leave it at that note. There is much to be discussed. There is much to be debated. Many more questions that I have. I am sure we will continue with this conversation in the coming days. I don't think The Wire and the Washington Post and the other partners of this global Pegasus project are done with their stories. A lot more has come out in the evening. A lot more may actually come out tomorrow as well. The government so far has simply stood and said they're all baseless, sensational reports with no merit to them. But I think the government will have to do a far more convincing job into explaining to us why they are so convinced that this is not credible at all, that this doesn't even merit a full-fledged investigation. Sure, nobody is sitting here right now and saying the government snooped on 300 people or 40 journalists in our country. But we do want to know if this happened at all. And who did this? If not the Indian government, then was it somebody else? A story that emerged in 2019 has come back in 2021 with a lot more names, with a lot more details. It simply cannot be wished away. It simply cannot be brushed under the carpet anymore. Every single entity which is linked to this story needs to take it up and bring out the truth, including the parliament, including the opposition, including the parliamentary panel, IT panel, that showed so much interest in what the victims of the last alleged hacking had to say and then did nothing about it. At the end of the day, it's a very big concern for any Indian citizen to know there exists this spyware which can be used to get inside my phone, to read everything that I do, to listen to everything that I do, to watch everything that I do, to put in information, to plant evidence and information on my phone, to track my location at every given single point. And if that is a possibility, rather than looking into it and stopping that, my government is turning around and saying, didn't happen. That to me is a little concerning. Thank you for joining us.